Hi there, it's Babs here from Yarn People, and today I'm going to be doing a tutorial around the crocodile stitch, which is a really, I think, is a really fun stitch. It is, it's a sort of three-dimensional stitch with the layers of scales coming down one on top of the other. They all have a slight little eyelet hole in the centre, which is to do with their construction, and then you have this really nice V point that comes down to each scale, which you can emphasize or not, depending upon what your make is that you're working on. Now the crocodile stitch works in two stages, and I'm going to show this in two separate videos so that you can see how that's done. So please be patient with me, you'll understand why. If I turn the fabric around, you can see that the back, or the reverse of the fabric, is very, very different to the front, and the back of the fabric has these V stitches in it, and these are so crucial because this is what you stitch each of your scales around. So this is a V that's got the scale stitched around it, and you can see all the stitches that have been worked around the legs of the V's. And so in video 2 I'll show you how to create the actual scales themselves, which is making these stitches, and they alternate. But in video 1, which is this video, I'm going to show you how to make the V stitches, because this is the base that is required before you can create any scales whatsoever. So the V stitch is a stitch that would stand on its own right, so that's why I'm leaving it as a video on its own. But if you're interested in the crocodile scale portion of this, then I'll put a link to the video in the corner up here, I think, and then you'll be able to see how you build on top of the V stitch that we learned today to create this beautiful crocodile scale. Now I'm going to start off using green yarn, not purple. I'm using green because we're working on a crocodile scale at the end of the day, so we'll just pop that up to one side, and I will just cast. You'll need to cast on an even number of stitches for twice the number of scales that you require, plus 2, which is going to be your turning chain for the first V stitch. So I'm going to cast on 10 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which should give me 4 V's and a turning chain. And I'm going to do an extra stitch because you need to have a chain 1 in between the 2 legs of your V stitch. So this doesn't make much sense at the moment, but it will do shortly. So then I do a yarn over and work a treble into the 4th stitch from the hook, and if I was working with US terms, this would be a double stitch into the 4th from the hook. So we'll do that, and now if you can see that clearly, I'm not sure you can on this first stitch, we have a leg going up this way, a chain across the top, and a leg going this way, which gives us the V stitch. So you skip a stitch down here on that cast on chain, you do a yarn over and work a treble into the next stitch. So you skip and then work a treble, and then we're going to work both trebles and the chain in the same space. So we do a treble or double, we chain 1, this is the gap across the top, and then we do a yarn over and we go back into that same stitch and work another treble. And this time around the V should be a lot clearer. So we've got a kind of curly smushy V here, but we've got a very defined V at this point. And then that's what you do all the way along. You skip a stitch and then you work another V, and for each V it is either a double US terms, chain double, or treble UK terms, chain treble in the same stitch. Skip a stitch and create another V. Now the first time out that we do this on the cast on row, it can feel a little bit confusing, but the second time round that you work a row of V's, it will be a lot clearer. So I'll show you how to do that. Although if you are going on to work a crocodile stitch, you would stop after one row of V's. So we skip a stitch and then we'll just do one last V in this last final stitch. So chain and then finish off, and so hopefully you can see we have a clear row of 4 V's. V, a V, a V, and then a final V. So we have 4 V's. Now, if you were going to be working the crocodile stitch, you would instantly turn your work and start working a crocodile stitch, which I'll show you in the next video. If what you want is another row of V's, I'll show you how to do that. Because what you do is you slip stitch across to the center. Whoops. And be careful, because if you let go, everything spins around your hook, and my skin's quite dry, so I tend to have that happening quite a lot. So I'm slipping across to this center stitch, and I tend not to work into the top loops, but I work into the chain space. So now I would slip to the chain space and then chain 3, because we want 2 for the treble length and 1 for the chain space, and then we're going to do the treble or the double if you're in US terms, and that gives us our first V. And then we're simply working into the chain space of every V from this point on. So it's yarn over through the center of that V stitch, and then complete back through the center of that V stitch. And this is effectively what we'll be doing when we work the crocodile stitches as well, the crocodile scales. You will be always working back into the top of each of the V stitches, so it's probably well worth your while seeing this video all the way through, even though there are no crocodile scales on the other side of the work right now, because you can see how, and hopefully understand how, the V stitches are constructed and how they relate to each other before we start piling on the complexity of the crocodile stitch. So here hopefully you can see, if I pull that through, I can use the hook now. We have the first row of V's. We have a V, a V, a V, a V, and then we have the second row of V's, a V, which are worked into the space at the top here. So say this is the V stitch, we're working into this gap here for every time. So the center of the next V comes here. So then we have another V stitch coming up. So we have V, 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 and so on and so forth, and then it would continue to build. And that is what you can see on the reverse. The center of the V stitch is always in the gap of the previous V stitch. So every point of the V is in the gap of the previous stitch. And that is all there is to it, to creating the V stitch, which in its own right is actually quite a nice design. And it's reversible. It looks lovely from the front or back, and you just continue working it. If you wanted to have more than 4 V's, then you just continue working with an even number of stitches, plus 3. So that gives you your two stitches, and then the turning at the top of the V stitch. That would give you the 3 stitches you need for the 2 and the 1 chain across. So hopefully that has made the V stitch clearer and you understand how to do that, which means if you are ready to move on to the crocodile stitch, the next video will be for you. And if not, I'd love to see some examples of your V stitch in action. It's a lovely stitch for a scarf, a cowl, even for gloves. It's a nice open stitch, and it gives it quite a beautiful effect when you build V on top of V on top of V. So I do quite enjoy it. It's a nice open stitch, lacy without being too complicated. I can't even speak today. Lacy without being too complicated. I tried to mix complex and complicated, and what did it get me? So hopefully you've enjoyed this, in which case give the video a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. There'll be a subscribe link along shortly, and I will be sharing some more tutorials soon. Until then, I'll say bye for now. Bye.